Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We are now on what is the section 16, subsection 8, reflections on Achamana. Atha Achamana Nirnayah. Now for a discussion on Achamana. Achamana means what? The traditional sipping of water 3 times before any kind of it's a kind of an inner cleansing before any kind of a what is that called, any kind of a religious ceremony is begun. There is a, what is that called, sipping, achamanam. Achamanam is a inner purification. So you purify by sipping the water 3 times. So Om Achyutaya Namaha, one sip. Om Anantaya Namaha, another sip. Then the final sip, Om Govindaya Namaha. So you purify the speech, you purify all the internal, you take the water internally and you pray over the water so that it purifies you. So this is the traditional achamana. This is how it is done. And then it is followed by nyasa, touching the various body parts and purifying those body parts, and then after that only one starts to do the puja. Now of course everything here is with a twist. For the achamanam, what is the achamanam for the jnani? The jnani is not doing any rituals. The jnani means a sannyasi, the one who is established in the knowledge, is not interested in doing rituals. And and then what happens is that he's not interested at all in doing any rituals. And but why? Because the rituals are for the person who feels a sense of incompleteness with regard to the self, because they need something to get out of the prayers and out of the they are doing certain things. And so then they are not doing anything else other than fulfilling their desires, but they are Vaidikas, so they are fulfilling the desires with the help of certain wonderful prayers, rituals, etc. So this achamanam becomes a daily ritual for 2 reasons. One is it is prescribed to be done before the prayer, and prayer is important for a karma yogi or for anybody, any dharmika person, because the prayer helps fulfill certain desires. The second reason the achamana becomes important is because over the course of the day there are certain raga, dveshas, fears, etc. get accumulated in the antahkarana. All kinds of ragas and dveshas and fears, jealousy, anger, depression, dejection, sorrow, all these things get completely are there. And so then what happens? So then they have to be cleaned out regularly. They have to be cleaned out, and then the achamanam helps to clean that out. So there is a kind of a maintenance, and both these reasons are negated for the jnani. The jnani doesn't require anything to either purify or to gain something as a result of the purification. But then we are looking at the daily achara of the jnani, the behavior of the jnani in the everyday, by superimposing these the daily life of a regular person, because that's how we understand the jnani, from the eyesight drishti, from the vision of the regular person. And so we are superimposing what all the regular persons does, but with a metaphorical twist. So let us see what the achamanam looks like for the jnani, for the person of knowledge. Very nice. Jadam karatale kritva samudramiva kumbhajah yada chamati yogindrah tada chamanamuttamam. So Jadam has two meanings. One, the commentary by Narahari's student Divakara points out that in the Sanskrit language there is dakara lakarayoho abhedah, non-difference between the d sound, which is the cerebral sound, and then a l sound, a cerebral l, which is, we only know the dental l, but there is a cerebral l. So the cerebral l is something which is often interchanged with the d. Like even in the Vedic mantra, Om Agnimi Ile Purohitam Yajnasya Devam Ritvijam Hota Aram Ratnadhatamam. Agnim Ide. Ide means I worship the Bhagavan in the form of the fire. Agnim Ide. And what has it become in the Veda? Agnimile. So then Ida becomes Ila, Ide becomes Ile. So there is an interchangeability. So between La and Da. So then he says, if you look at it that way, it is Jalam karatale kritva, not Jadam, Jalam. Jalam means water. Water, karatale kritva. Karatale means in the palm of the hand. Kritva means sandharya, keeping the water in the palm of the hand. Then the person does achamanam. That's how, because first you have to have water and then you sip the water. This is what this is what happens. You sip the water, and then what is the story here? So you sip the water as it is in the 3 times for internal purification. So then what does the person of knowledge do? The person of knowledge Jadam, here there is a double meaning. Jadam karatale kritva. Jadam means anything in the universe that is inert. In fact, if you take away Parabrahma, if you take away Brahman from the universe, the whole entire universe is inert, but just on the Nama Rupa level. So then the person of knowledge keeps the entire Nama Rupa in the palm of the hand and drinks it in one go. Meaning, makes the Nama Rupa disappear unto herself, unto himself, who is none other than Parabrahman, none other than Bhagavan. Just like Bhagavan resolves the whole universe, the Jnani resolves the whole universe cognitively by seeing its bluff. And so here there is an example, Samudram iva kumbhajah. Kumbhaja means Kumbhat jayate iti kumbhajah. It is a name of sage Agastya, a very evolved, spiritually evolved sage. So there is a story associated with this sage. What is the story? The story is that the sage had a lot of siddhis, and then the sage was asked to by asked help by the celestials. The Indra, etc., were trying to hunt a group of Rakshasas. Who are these Rakshasas? Bad news people. These people he was trying to hunt down, Indra and his Sena and his army, and then the Devas, the celestials were trying to hunt down these demonic beings, and then the demonic beings were very clever. They had they had evolved into being able to breathe underwater, kind of like frogs and cockroaches, etc. So these asuras, what did they do? They decided to enter the ocean. Indra looked everywhere for them, he couldn't find them. So he asked sage Agastya's help. And sage Agastya said, have you looked in the trees? Yes. Have you looked in the forest? Yes. Have you looked in the mountains? Yes. Have you looked in the deserts? Yes. Have you looked up and down and in the snow? Yes. Have you looked in the flat land? Yes. Well, Agastya said the only place where we don't have X-ray eyes is the ocean. I think I can help. And he cupped the entire ocean water into his hands and drank it up in one swoop. And then revealing these trembling asuras. So this is the story. Okay, the example doesn't quite fit, but it is fun nonetheless, because the example is what? The example is that which was hiding the reality has been swallowed up. So what is the water in the hands of the jnani? The water in the hands of the jnani is Maya and its karya effects. How beautiful, see? So Maya, the entire Maya and its effects. The effects of Maya are what? The whole manifestations of the Nama Rupa, which hides. So which hides the truth of oneself from oneself. So Maya is that avarna. Just like the ocean was the covering for the asuras who were trying to hide, and then so therefore Maya becomes the covering for Brahman, which is as though hidden in every Nama and Rupa. And as long as the Nama Rupa are given importance, and as long as the name and form are one buys into the name and form, then the truth of the Nama Rupa are not seen. And so similarly, that water also has a very kind of an amorphous quality like Maya. It is everywhere and it hides things. And so this kind of a water, this fluid, all pervasive Maya, is cupped up and sipped up by the jnani cognitively. Here only example. What remains behind in the example is the asuras. Here what remains behind is not asuras. It is Brahman. It is the understanding that everything is Ishvara. So the jnani, having Ishvarized everything, cups the Maya, which is Avarna Shakti, which is the covering power, which is Avidya, and then has done Eka Poshanam. Eka Poshanam means in one fell swoop has taken away through knowledge, has sipped up all the Maya, all the Avarna Shakti of Maya has been laid bare. This is what is the achamanam. Yad achamati yogindraha. Yogindraha means yoginam indraha, the king of all the yogis. And here, yogi is not somebody who is doing yogasana or who is into meditation, etc. Yogi here is the one who is the yogi here is the one who is what? Who is the from yuj to join, who has joined one's own true nature. So that kind of a yogi, and then the best among the sages and this person who is the best among the sages has, as it were, cupped up the entire oceanic limitless Maya, all pervasive, and the covering for Brahman, so to speak, the as though covering for the mind, the as though covering in the form of self ignorance, has cupped up and sipped up in the hand with the ease of someone doing achamanam. And the effects of achamanam, this ritual, is purification. So the yogi is purified of avidya. Very, very beautiful. So this is what is achamanam. And then the next one, atha pratas sandhya nirnayah. Then after achamanam, the preparation for prayer. What does the person do? The preparation for prayer, achamanam, is the person, what does the person do? The person gets ready for a specific prayer, series of prayers done at various junctures, called sandhya. Sandhya vandanam. Sandhi means that there is a juncture between two time periods, and that is what is called sandhi. Dead of the night and morning, not quite dawn but not quite night. It is called Brahma Vela. This is one sandhi, the first sandhi. That is why it is very auspicious to pray during these sandhis. Then the next one comes when the next one comes at noon, not yet afternoon, and at the end of the what we call morning time. The third one comes between the between when it is going to be nightfall and then evening, often called twilight. That is the third sandhi. The fourth one comes like somewhere around midnight, but that one nobody does because one is asleep at that time. So sandhya means these three, and that is the time where the nocturnals are awake and alive, like pretas, bhutas, all these things, these disembodied beings and nocturnal animals. We leave them in peace. We go to bed. We go into a nirvikalpa samadhi. So these three sandhis, during which one is awake during the day, when one is awake, that is the time when one is totally asked to do the prayers. Why? Because the sandhi time is a time of great possibility and also grave danger. Because after all, it's neither morning nor night, and then that 4 o'clock, there which energies prevail at that time, it is unknown. Whether and it's also usually astrologically a time period, a cuspid period between the which are takes over for that particular time, which yoga, which karana, these are all various small periods of time. Karana, yoga, tithi, all these things are, nakshatra, rashi, all these things are there based on the movements of the sun and the moon. So these micro time periods when not any particular star predominates, not any particular yoga perhaps predominates, not any particular karana predominates, or two karanas predominate, are coexisting at the same time. So like this, there is a period of uncertainty, which is when accidents can happen, tragedy can befall, and for a person of spiritual resolve, that resolve can become weak exactly at that time, or some difficulties can come in the process. So this is why it is very, very important to look at this sandhi as times of prayer. And also sandhis are big possibilities because they help to cut the prarabdha, meaning some some karma that one is supposed to exhaust. One is supposed to endure this karma, But then during the sandhi there is a place for neutralizing this karma, because that karma can become weak at that time because it doesn't preponderate. So therefore prayer is advised in the sandhi time for everybody except the jnani, who is free of vidhi, any kind of injunctions, and free of nishedha, any kind of prohibitions. So now if we were to assume that the jnani is going about her or his day just like the person who doesn't have this knowledge, what would the sandhi be like, you know? And what would the sandhi prayers for the jnani look like? Let us read. अथोपयुक्तः क्रियते प्रातः सन्ध्या विनिर्णयः मनोजन्म जगज्जन्म मनो नाशो जगल्लयः. अथ उपयुक्तः. उपयुक्तः means suitable. Atha means thereafter, meaning after what? After discussing the achamanam, the previous ritual. And what was the achamanam for the jnani? Laying bare the effects of maya as mithya. Laying bare the mithyatvam of the jagat was the achamanam, the ritualistic sipping of the water. And then now what? Now after that follows sandhya. Atha upayuktah kriyate. Now we are doing a suitable kind of a juxtaposition for the morning sandhya prayers. Pratas sandhya. So the 4 o'clock time, 4:30 time we are talking about. And what is there, so then, what is the prayer here? Mano janma jagad janma. When the mind is quote unquote born means what? When the mind is alive to the realities, when the mind pays attention to something in the jagat is also born. Very interesting. This is Sandhya. This is the Jnani's prayer. The Jnani's prayer is in the form of a very strong sankalpa, understanding the mind and its connection to the Jagat. Then Manonashaha, when the mind is in a state of repose, like in sleep or samadhi, Jagat Layaha, Jagal Layaha. Manonasho Jagat Layaha. So Manonasho Jagat Layaha means the Jagat goes into a state of repose when the mind is inactive. So what does this mean? Meaning this is the juncture for the Jnani. The mind means the awareness, consciousness, because the mind for the jnani is not just any kind of a mind. Any kind of a mind it is not. It is that the jnani's mind is a different kind of a mind, because it is not, ahankara, buddhi, chittam, all these things, mano, buddhi, ahankara, chittani, because that jnani is not thinking in terms of this is my ego, ahankara, this is my mind, these are my feelings, this is my intellect. All that has been transcended, by understanding that the mind is nothing but awareness, ahankara is nothing but awareness, buddhi is nothing but consciousness, which is awareness, and the chittam, the feelings, emotions are nothing but awareness. So everything is atma, mind is atma, buddhi is atma, and the jnani knows atma is not any one thing. So for the person who lives as awareness, then when the awareness rests on a particular object, dhyayati iva, as though the person is contemplating on the particular object, as simple as a butterfly alighting on top of a flower, then in that moment the flower comes to light for the butterfly. So similarly, the mind is like that. The mind is chanchala, keeps going here and there. But for the jnani who is not chasing after the thoughts, who is not shunning the thoughts, the mind effortlessly goes and lights on something. And the mind, in the form of the light of consciousness, the light of awareness, shines on something, and lo and behold, that thing is born. So Jagat here means things in the Jagat. So so dhyayati iva. So the jnani as though concentrates. And then what happens? The jnani as though moves away. Relayati iva. The jnani as though gets distracted. The jnani as though hones in. The jnani as though, fades out. So it's not that the consciousness fades in and out. It's not that the jnani, who is nothing but the embodiment of consciousness, fades in and out. What fades in and out are the objects of consciousness that are cognized by that consciousness, which is still, which is ever present, which is the self, which the jnani is identified with. So this shows that the I is unlike anything else in the Jagat. The I is self-evident, and everything else in the Jagat is evident to the self. Everything becomes evident to me, the self. Thought evident to me, pot evident to me, cat, mat, rat, hat, bat evident to me. Absence of something evident to me, presence of something evident to me. What about I? Evident to me. I is also evident to me. I is not evident to somebody else, and who then communicates it to me. So this is what is called Svatasiddhata, the self evident, self shining, self radiant, self luminous. It lights itself up, this self, and it lights up the entire universe of names, of forms, of everything. And each time the light shines on something, then that thing as though comes to light. Like in the 10th chapter of the Panchadashi, a very beautiful text. And in the 10th chapter of the Panchadashi, what is happening? A lot of things are happening, because it is called Nataka Deepa. It is called the lamp of the theatre. An ancient amphitheater is visualized, and the dancer is dancing. The accompanists are playing. And then what? The audience is saying, Wah, wah, taliyan, clap, clap, clap. Wah, what a wonderful performance. And the audience is looking at each other, swaying back and forth because the music is so wonderful, imitating the dancer's movements because she is so mesmerizing, and enjoying. And then all these things are what? Come to light. What is bringing them to light? How is the dancer seen? How is the audience sitting in their seats seen? How is the guitarist, the flautist, the everybody, all the live orchestra, how does it come to light? There is one ignored thing which nobody looks at. The Nataka Deepa chapter says, which is the theatre lamp, a big firebrand right in the middle, which lights up the stage, which lights up the dancer, which lights up the accompaniments, which lights up the audience. But what lights up the light? The light alone lights itself up and lights everything else up. Very beautiful. And if we take this Nataka Deepa to the present day, Broadway plays. Of course, Broadway is closed for 1 year, but at some point it will be open. But anyhow, if we think of a modern play, then what happens? We have these spotlights. The whole stage is dark in a modern play. Then the spotlight comes on one person who is ranting, raving, speaking, talking, lamenting about something. Then that person goes dark, and then the spotlight comes on another person who is consoling the first person who is having a meltdown. You see, that spotlight is what is talked about here. Mano janma jagat janma, mano nashah jagallayah. So that awareness which is amorphous, which is not really thinking on about anything else, when that awareness hones in and brings an object to light, then that object is as though born. When the jnani pays attention to the Jagat is born. When the jnani wakes up and stretches, the Jagat also stretches and is born, is available for transaction, is available as an object of cognition. Then the jnani does his or her during the day whatever they do, and then at the end of the day the jnani goes under the covers and starts to snore. The Jagat also is in repose. Very, very beautiful. This is the Sandhya. Sandhya means the time between the birth of the Jagat and the which is dependent upon the birth of the mind, and the quote unquote death or the resolution of the Jagat, which is dependent upon the resolution of the mind. That Sandhi is the Sandhya prayers for the Jnani, so to speak. Very, very nice. In the Mandukya Upanishad, the last chapter is called, in the Gaudapada Karika, is called Alata Shanti. Alata means a joss stick, an incense stick. And don't think of the incense stick in the modern day, which is very thin and small. In the ancient times, they had, cinnamon, citronella, all these things, like a kind of a thick stick, which had kind of herbal, which kept the mosquitoes out during rituals, etc., like a thicker stick. And that was called alata. And in between an incense stick and something thicker like a small firebrand, this was called alata, which was made of rolled up herbs or dried on a stick, and which would keep all the mosquitoes out during the evening prayers, etc. So then this Alata Shanti is based on a very interesting exercise which all children used to do growing up. And what would the children do? It would be night, some kind of an evening night ritual, and then very pleasant outside, and then you grab one of those joss sticks, and then you write your name in the firmament of the night, and the name appears with all the words and letters in a flourish, and then it is gone. And then again the firmament is free for you to draw a cow, a kitty, a doggy, a house, your own siblings in the form of various stick figures. Because after all, this is also an incense stick, so it will draw some stick figures. And in the stick figures, the two siblings are fighting. One stick figure is beating up the other stick figure, and the stick figure dog is barking. And so this is all there. And then you get very inspired and you roll and you make all these, you even make an om, and then you make all these abstract designs, and then the hand gets tired. The alata stops, you swirl with the alata, you get tired, the hand gets tired, you stop. Where did the world go? Where did all the names and forms go? Where did the stick figures go? Where did the om go? Where did everything go? What is there? What was producing this whole universe is that orange tip of the light at the end of the stick. And that light is the light of consciousness with which the Jnani has completely identified. That is what is the beauty of this. The Jnani has identified with this totally and completely. And then what happens? And then the whole thing is understood. And what is understood? That the products of the stick figure come and go. The products of the incense stick come and go. and if you don't understand that they come and go, they stick in your mind. They become a sticky issue because you don't understand their impermanence, their ephemerality, so to speak, and you just completely are not cognizant of that. And so therefore what? So therefore for the jnani, who knows that the entire world and myself as a being who is witnessing the world is nothing but a light at the end of the stick. And when that stick goes and draws something, that particular thing comes to light. When that stick is quiet, then that jnani, then that mind, which is consciousness, is abiding, residing in its own glory. The jnani knows this extremely well. Very, very wonderful. What a teaching. And so then imagine how much credence one gives to the Jagat as a reality, as a parallel reality to the self. Every single day there is a battle with Jagat and the people in it. You wake up with boxing gloves attached. You keep it by the bedside perhaps, and when you wake up it is put on because you need to straighten out a few people. You need to get some things in order. You need to put some people, in their place. And is it easy? No. Why? Because the other people are also wearing their own boxing gloves and they are coming, and so the Jagat becomes a fighting ring where one mithya object is having it out with another mithya object, each one thinking itself to be real. If Satyam is not understood as that end of the joystick, that light of consciousness at the end of this incense stick, then mithya takes over and mithya preponderates and masquerades as Satyam. Mithya becomes Satyam. And so therefore mithya cannot become Satyam. Mithya is non-separate from Satyam, but that Satyam has to be understood in and through every name and form. What blesses each and every name and form, nay, what creates every name and form, is this light of consciousness alone. So mano nashaha jagallayaha. So when there is nobody to pay attention to, then what happens? That Jagat is as good as uncognized, as good as non-existent. Just like our redwood tree crashing in the forest. Who cares? Because does it make a sound or not? Who cares? Because my ears did not hear. If my ears did not hear, what is the definition of a sound? That which is heard is a sound. If there are no ears and the consciousness behind the ears to bless the ears to hear, then that it's as good as the sound is not there. Further, what is that? Going on this same vein, the author says something. Let's see. Tasyonmesha nimeshabhyam udaya pralayau yatah samadhyabhyasa shilasya purva samskara karanat. Tasya, for that, tasya means jagataha, tasya means manasaha, of the mind. So of the mind, unmesha, opening, nimesha, closing. Just like the eyelids, it's as though the mind is endowed with eyelids, and so the mind opens and then the mind closes. So then unmesha nimeshabhyam, with the rising and the resolution of the mind, then udaya pralayau yataha. Udaya pralayau yataha. Udaya means the rising. The rising, and then pralaya means the resolution. So with the opening of the mind is the rising of the Jagat, with the closing of the mind is the Pralaya, the resolution of the Jagat. We have seen this. Then Samadhi Abhyasa Shilasya. Samadhi Abhyasa Shilasya. So Samadhi means for the one who is Abhyasa Shila means for the one who is established in Samadhi. Samadhi, samadhau, abhyasashilasya. So for the one who is a pro, samadhi pro, the one who is completely an expert in samadhi, what happens? Purva samskara karanat. Because of previous impressions, then what happens? The Jagat comes to light. And then the Jagat dissolves, resolves with the opening of the mind and the Jagat being the rise of the Jagat being calibrated to the opening of the mind and the closing of the mind is simply a matter of previous samskaras. And where are the samskaras here? Because the idea is that the person is always in samadhi, not the kind of the samadhi which is the cessation of thoughts, but the kind of samadhi where the thoughts are transcended in the wake of the knowledge that I am not the thinker, I am not the thought, I am not the cognizer of the thought either. I am just a person of light. I am the light of consciousness. When the witness happens to rest upon a thought, then that thought is cognized. This is because of previous samskaras, means the previous habit of seeing things and those things which are the object of sight having made an impression on the person. That's all. And what kind of an impression? Not as in a good impression, bad impression. Merely, the cognition itself is an impression. And right there, the quote unquote, the mind is not attaching to the thoughts. The mind is not getting involved with the thoughts. But yes, the person of Jnanam is living in the universe and occasionally paying attention to the universe, even though the universe does not have any effect on the Jnani. No effect at all. That is the idea. Let us see again. Yeah, so this Unmesha Nimesha Tasya is connected to the Jagat. Ubhaya Pralayau is connected to the Unmesha Nimesha, the opening and the closing, is connected to the mind. The activation of the mind gives rise to the Jagat and the things in the Jagat. When the mind is in repose, the Jagat also comes to rest as an object of cognition. And so for the one who is a adept in samadhi, because of the previous impressions, the so-called appearance and the disappearance of the Jagat takes place. And why is it cognized as appearance and disappearance? Really speaking, the truth of it all is that, is that which has no appearance, no disappearance. All that is there is Bhagavan, which is myself. What Jagat? Where is the Jagat? If I look at something and that Jagat awareness takes place, for the Jnani, this is because of the previous samskara. This will, don't worry if it is not adequately clear, it will become clear with the next verse. Yadutthanam samadhanat sasandhis sandhiratrahi tatra api prapta tattvanam gurunam upadeshatah. So this we have to be very clear, because the first two verses here were setting the stage for this particular discussion in the third verse. So the first verse talked about how the rising of the mind is the creation of the world, and the resolution of the mind is the resolution, and the dissolution of the mind is the resolution of the Jagat. How that operates for the Jnani we saw. Now in the second verse, this idea was elaborated a little further. It said, for the one who is an adept in samadhi, when the eyes open, meaning when the mind opens, the eyes see certain things. It is unavoidable, and the jnani may say, oh, it's a nice day. The jnani may say that. But the difference between an ajnani saying, it's a nice day, it better be good for me, I better not have any bad things here, may all my yoga and kshema come true. This is the ajnani's definition of nice day. May this day fulfill all my raga dveshas. For the jnani, oh, this is a nice day is just an objective fact. The weather is in the 70s and the wind is blowing and the sun is out. Maybe that is what they are trying to say. So this is, so for the one established in samadhi, the world appears when you come out of this samadhi, and the world as though disappears when you go back into samadhi. And why is that? Why do you go in and out of samadhi? The jnani will say, because of purva samskara, because of old habits. The habits are like toothless children, babies who are 2 or 3 months old before they start teething. So you put a finger into the mouth of the baby and it brings down its jaws. What happens? Nothing happens, no bite. So these habits are just part of the jagat, part of the jnani's life. No bite. They are not binding habits. They are just there when the eyes are open, when the mind is open, something comes to sight. The jnani may register it. The gnari registers it, and that doesn't become binding. That registration of the jagat in the mind of the jnani, when it doesn't make a lasting impression, it is something that is observed and then one moves on. That is what the second verse told us. Now the third verse says, Yaduthanam samadhanat. When the person comes out of the contemplation, meaning comes out of that resolution called samadhi, where the jagat and the observer of the jagat are one and the same, when that samadhi one comes out of, then saha sandhihi atrahi. So before, okay, now the person had samadhi number 1, the jnani. So the jnani sat for contemplation, meditation, and went into a state of laya, went into a state of being with the glory of oneself, and then the resolution of the jagat took place. Then the person came out of samadhi. Then what happened? The person went into samadhi number 2. Okay, so in regular yoga shastra, yoga practice and yoga philosophy, the samadhi 1, samadhi 2 are seen as discrete events, and then the place in between samadhi, the juncture in between samadhi 1 and samadhi 2 is seen as a non samadhi place. So I was in samadhi for half an hour. Now I am out of samadhi, and now I go into samadhi again. Of course, the person going into samadhi cannot say that, because there is a resolution of even the awareness that one is going into samadhi. But this is just for the sake of exemplifying this. And so now, so between the experience of samadhi number 1 and samadhi number 2 in the life of a karma yogi or a regular yoga practitioner, that in between space is no samadhi place. Like meditation and then distraction, no meditation, and then again meditation. Om Namah Shivaya. There is a gap, right? Om Namah Shivaya. One more gap. Om Namah Shivaya. So then you are supposed to only think of Om Namah Shivaya. The mind has been given a task to do, so that one can have a say over the ways of the mind. But then what does the mind do? The mind is distracted. Om Namah Shivaya. And then after that, is anything happening? What's going on? How come I'm not feeling peaceful? Meditation is supposed to bring me peace. I'm getting angrier with every Om Namah Shivaya. You see, that's what happened in between one Om Namah Shivaya and another. And between the second Om Namah Shivaya and the third Om Namah Shivaya, one was seething with anger at somebody who said something to you in passing, but it left a lasting, some kind of a scar, and you keep thinking of why they did that, why they said that, how they are, etc., etc., etc. So, so then, so when you are saying Om Namah Shivaya, you can say I was in meditation. When I am not saying Om Namah Shivaya, then I am not in meditation. This is the lay person's understanding. For the Jnani, everything is Samadhi. Why? Because Yad Utthanam Samadhanat. So from the rise, the getting up from Samadhi number 1, and before going into Samadhi number 2 is the Sandhi, is that small juncture rife with dangers and possibilities, the dangers in the form of distraction and the possibility in the form of something exciting. Tatrapi, even though it's described as a Sandhi, nevertheless, what is it? Prapta Tattvanam, for the enlightened person, Tattvam Praptam Yena. So for the person who knows the reality, who has gained the reality, Gurunam Upadeshataha, has gained the reality, the knowledge of the reality of the by the Guru's teaching. So the space between Samadhi number 1 and Samadhi number 2 is filled with the waking contemplation of the Guru's teaching, of the Upanishad's teaching. See how beautiful? Yeah. So it is also a samadhi. So in the life of a ajnani, the ajnani will say the samadhi was broken. Oh, I was in samadhi, now I am outside of samadhi. I have to attend to the ringing doorbell. I have to see who wants something from me. I have to do this, I have to do that. No such thing for this person. For when the person wakes out of being centered on the self, comes out of that, and the rise of the Jagat does not form a threat for this person. The rise of the Jagat is one more opportunity for the mind to contemplate on the Jagat as Ishvara, as the truth of oneself. So, Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam was a sentence learned by the teacher. So the Guru Upadesha is going in the mind, and the person Ishvarizes the whole Jagat. The person sees everything as Ishvara in the waking non-samadhi moments. And so now there is no juncture, there is no distinction between samadhi and non-samadhi. All that there is one unbroken contemplation. That is the idea. So this is the so-called Sandhi prayers of the enlightened being who makes who uses the time between one state of absorption to another by contemplating on the Upanishadic Vakyas, on the Mahavakyas unfolded by the teacher. More we'll see next time. I think next month. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ